Hey everybody, how are you doing today? So I'm going to actually start off with a riddle. What is something that belongs to you, but everybody else uses it more than you do? Do you have any ideas? Have you heard this one before? Well, the answer is it's your name. Do you know who named you? Do you know why you have your name? Does it mean something special, or does it honor somebody? Or a place, or have something to do with history. So my name, as you know, is Jamie, but my whole name is actually Jamie Joe. And I always really liked that because my mom's name's Jodine and everyone called her Joe. And so I thought, well, she just, I'm like my mom. But I remember when I was a teenager, she told me once that she actually named me after her favorite grandpa, and his name was Joseph. And so I think that's really neat that a lot of us have names that are tied to heritage or to another place or a language or a friend or a family member or somebody that's important to our parents. I even have a friend whose name is a mashup of her parents' names. And so names are a really neat thing. So today I'm going to ask you about the names of places. Have you ever thought about the name of your town or your favorite canyon to go up, or a river or a lake, and why they are named that way? So most of the names that we use today were established by people that came here to our valley in the late 1800s, so about 150 years ago. Like many of us, many of the places that we know today were named after people, including the towns of Hyrum, Wellsville, and Nibley. They were all named after Mormon leaders. Hyrum after Hyrum Smith, Wellsville after Daniel Wells, and Nibley after Charles Nibley. So some first names and some last names too. So today what I want to do is put on our historical thinking hats. Do you think that those places were called something else before the Mormon pioneers came to our valley? No, of course they were, right? There weren't towns like we have now, but the northwestern band of Shoshone lived throughout this area for hundreds of years, and they had names for all the places, rivers, and mountains because they would travel around and live different places in different areas during different time of the year to get different resources. So of course, to navigate, to get around, this was their area, and so of course they had names for different places. Their homeland stretched for hundreds of miles in every direction. So it was definitely important for them to navigate their landscape. Today, we're going to learn what Native people called a lot of the rivers in northern Utah. So the largest tributary to the Great Salt Lake, which flows right through our valley, is called the Bear River. That's what we call it today. And I bet a lot of you have been fishing or boating. If you've been out to Benson Marina, that's the Bear River, or out to Cutler Dam, or up into areas of southern Idaho. Like if you've ever come down the Oneida Narrows, that eventually runs into the Bear River. The northwestern band called this river Boa-Ogai, which means big river. Because it is a very big river, isn't it? Some other names they called the Snake River Po'ogwa, which refers to the snaking flow, and the Salmon River is Ogayampa. Some other rivers you might be familiar with in the Salt Lake Valley also had native names. For instance, they called the Jordan River Pia-Baguisi, the City Creek River they called Napopa, the Little Cottonwood River was Wakinokin, the Big Cottonwood River was Wiandikint, and Mill Creek is Obe-Opa. Even the Great Salt Lake has a native name, and it's Piapa. So as I was saying those names, did you hear me say the word Pa several times? Well, that's because the direct cultural ancestors of all the Native American tribes that live in the northern half of Utah, so the Shoshone, the Ute, the Paiute, all those people spoke Numic languages. And in Numic dialects, the word for water is either Pa or Ba. So for hundreds of years before the Mormon pioneers settled in Utah, Numic peoples lived throughout this area and knew how to live and thrive in this arid area. It's a very challenging landscape, and by adapting to the land and its waters, and their deep their deep knowledge of water and where to find it was essential to their survival. And so, of course, they had names for all the different waterways here because each one was important for them to be able to survive. We are actually going to learn, there's so much more to learn. I just talked about rivers for a minute. But we're going to learn more about this at our next second Saturday activity at the museum, which is coming up on May 8th. If you haven't had a chance to visit us for a second Saturday, they're really fun. The museum's open from 10 to 3, and we have a fun children's activity. This month we'll have some things you can take home that everyone can take home. We'll have some neat maps to look at. And so there's a lot of neat things you can come learn about the native name places of our area. I also want to mention, as you see this here, we're going to be opening a new exhibit called H2O Today in August, and that's actually coming to us from the Smithsonian, which, if you haven't heard of the Smithsonian, that's the biggest museum in our country. It's a really wonderful museum and has great resources it sends out throughout our country. And so we're super excited to be hosting H2O Today. We'll talk more about water. Water then. Let's see. Anyway, it's super exciting. So today for activity, if you've been able to drop by the museum, this is what our little activity packet looks like today. And so we're just going to do some stamping, and we're going to do flowers. I really love this time of the year because the flowers are all sneaking up through the dirt and starting to bloom. And I bet you that this was a super exciting time when the Native Americans lived right off the land, because it brought new kinds of food and resources for them. And so we're going to look at some different ways you can stamp flowers. So in your packet, you should have a piece of paper, which I've already started this one a little bit, and you should have some paint and a paintbrush and a fork. Now, disclaimer, I was not paying very much attention to these forks, and these are awful stamping forks. So if you want to use something different or find another plastic fork, don't use a nice silverware fork, I guess, unless your mom tells you it's okay. But these actually have holes in the back and they don't work very well. But I still made it work. So you can either use this one or a different one. And you can do this a couple of different ways. If you want to have a grown-up help you, you can pour some paint on a plate. But what I did is I just used my paintbrush to basically paint the back of the fork. And so we'll get some paint on here. And like I said, these ones don't work very well to stamp with, so I really had to fill this in quite a bit. So I just globbed the paint on here. And then we're going to, and forks are bent right, so you kind of have to roll it. So as you can see, that did not come out very good because I chose really not great forks to give you guys. So again, if you want to use something a little bit better, please do so. So what I did is I actually, just with all of these, I used my paintbrush to fill these in a little bit. So once you do that, and you can do as many flowers as you want, you can find other things to stamp with. One thing that I really loved to do when I was little was you can use potatoes or a yam or any kind of a hard root vegetable like that, and you can carve all kinds of shapes out of them and stamp how to do that. I haven't actually looked it up, but I am certain there's probably a YouTube video or two out there to show you how to do it if you just don't have any luck with your forks. And so once you get a bunch of flowers on here, then you can just draw some stems. And I just did this with I almost said toothbrush, with my paintbrush too. So you just make yourself some stems. And there you go. Now we've got a little garden of flowers. Another fun thing you can stamp with, you can see this other Do you like these? I think those look like pretty neat tulips, huh? And so the really easy way that I did this was actually with a toilet paper roll, right? You've all got these, I'm sure, around your house. And so what I did is I just got some scissors, and really it doesn't matter how thick. This is the one I made, it was about that thick. If you've got smaller hands, or if you're helping somebody that's young, you know, you might want to make them pretty chunky. Or you could just give them a little thicker. So I started by just making a cut, and then just continuing to cut all the way around. And then, so now I have a cut edge, and I use the smooth edge, and you just give it a good crease. And a trick to make a nice smooth crease is to get something hard and rub it, and then that will give you a nice point. See, so then you get a nice teardrop shape like that. And again, you can pour the paint out, or you can just paint it on. So on this one, I just painted it on. So I think, should we put a, what do you guys think? An orange flower on with this one? Okay, so I'm gonna put some orange paint around the edge of this. And then to make one of these tulips, you just stamp it 3 times. And so I start with this, I'm gonna have this face me, actually, okay. So I start with the one that's straight up first, and press it. So then you've got your first one. Oops, I guess I didn't put that in there. Let's get some more paint on here. So you're going to do it 3 times. This time you're going to put it off to the side just a little. And what you want to do is line up the bottoms. So you want the bottoms to stay the same, and then just bring it over slightly. And I guess you could, if you were able to do a good job and get a lot of paint on here, you could stamp more than once, but I prefer to paint it each time. Okay, and then same thing here. We're going to go over the side just a little bit. And there you go. And that's super easy way to make a cute tulip. Now with these ones, there's a couple different things you can do. If you want to get your brush all nice and clean, you can kind of pull up on some of this paint, get some water in it, and it kind of brings some color into it. See, like this. Another thing you can do, if you got a packet from one of our last Back in Time activities and still have your watercolors, those work really well too. I'm going to get some orange, and that can bring some color up into it also. And then again, I just got the green paint and drew a stem. And so that's another really easy way you can make some pretty tulips. So different ways of stamping, right? So if you guys do this activity, take a picture of it and email it to us, or post it on Facebook or Instagram so that we can see it. And then, and if you think of any other really good fun things to stamp with, let's see those too. I want to tell you that we are going to be starting our Passport Summer Fun program this year again. I'm super excited. We are almost ready to go with that. It will start on June 12th, which will be the day of our car show fundraiser, Hot Wheels in Hyrum. If you can come to that, it'll be really fun. If you can't, that's just fine. You can come to the museum starting that next week that we're open, and we'll have passports here for you to get. So we've got one more Back in Time that we'll do virtually like this, with activity packets on May 18th, and we're going to talk about storytelling. Storytelling in museums, and you guys will learn how to tell your own story, and we'll give you a fun project hopefully to do this summer. And so I hope you have a good day and that we see you at the museum soon.